You're listening to Her Brilliant Health Radio, episode number 44.
She used to deliver babies, but now she delivers exceptional wellness for women. Welcome to Her Brilliant Health Radio, where holistic women's health expert and board-certified OBGYN Dr. Kieran Dunstan shares revolutionary insight from leading experts on what you need to know today to treat the root cause of disease, heal, and create the radiant health you've been searching for.
Hey, it's Dr. Kieran here with another episode of Her Brilliant Health Radio. Today I have a special guest who I met on YouTube, and I stumbled upon her channel about the sacred feminine and goddesses, and I started watching and I just became enamored with her very quickly. She has a wonderful way of helping to educate women about the sacred feminine, and she's going to talk with us about exactly what the sacred feminine is and how it can help us achieve brilliant health. So Syma Kharal is an international sacred feminine coach, healer, speaker, retreat leader, and #1 Amazon bestselling author of the books Goddess Reclaimed and Manifest Soulmate Love. She holds an honors degree with distinction in psychology and a certificate in counseling from the University of Toronto, and is a certified Reiki master, yoga and meditation teacher, spirit guide, and Akashic Records coach. She is dedicated to empowering soulful women heal their deepest wounds, manifest their boldest dreams, and flourish in every way. Syma immersed herself in the healing arts at the age of 14 to overcome the deeply damaging effects of extensive abuse and trauma. In addition to healing herself, her intensive spiritual work led her to co-create a life she never dreamt possible, leaving a toxic corporate career to follow her calling, manifesting and marrying her soulmate, transforming women's lives through her heart's work, and traveling the world with her beloved husband. She loves nothing more than supporting fellow sisters to do the same, to transcend disempowering patterns, reclaim their full feminine power, and step fully into the goddesses they truly are. Welcome, Syma. Welcome, Syma. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Kieran. I'm so blessed to be here.
Yes. So as I was sharing with you, I had stumbled across your YouTube channel one day. I don't remember what, you know how it gives suggestions, and I clicked on it. And I watched a few videos and just became enamored with you and all that you had to offer women, because also, as I was explaining, and I want everybody to know, my journey of healing hasn't just been about the physical. Even though I'm an MD medical doctor, that I have learned that healing is about so much more than medical doctors are trained in. And particularly it's about the energetic and subtle bodies. And that gets into fields that I had no knowledge of from medical school, that I've had to educate myself on post-doctorate. Right. And part of it has been this divine feminine and sacred feminine, and really looking at balancing the energetic body, masculine and feminine. And I thought, I immediately thought, watching you, I want to have you come on the podcast and talk to everybody about what this is, because I want this podcast to be a source of information about healing globally, physical health, energetic health, life health, and living brilliant lives. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted to have you here for everybody listening. And can you help everyone understand, because most people probably listening have never heard of what we're talking about. So what is the divine feminine? What is the sacred feminine?
Thank you so much for asking that. I'm so passionate about teaching about the divine feminine, because I feel us women especially, but women and men, we all need to hear about this forgotten aspect of the divine, because our culture has really focused on the masculine God and the masculine aspect of God. And I think we've been a little afraid to venture into the goddess and the divine feminine. I was raised in a Muslim household. I went to Catholic school, so I really understand sometimes when we're brought up in certain religious backgrounds, we may hesitate from learning about different deities because it's considered, blasphemous and heresy, and you can't have another God. But because of my own healing journey and my background with sexual abuse that happened in my childhood, I had to go on this healing journey really early in my life due to post-traumatic stress and a whole bunch of symptoms that happened with that, specifically around my womb and the healing around the sacral chakra, the sexual chakra, because of all that violation and trauma that was stuck there. And I also, similar to you, found that whether I went on the birth control pill to manage all of those symptoms, or even counseling, psychology, which was helpful, there was still a lot of trauma that was left, and it led me to explore this divine feminine and discovering, even starting at the age of 13, this goddess Aphrodite. I think she was my first introduction to the feminine. I'm a Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus, Aphrodite. And I learned about this Greek Roman goddess who was born nude and naked, and she was the embodiment of love, beauty, sacred sexuality. And this was so foreign to me, right? Coming from this background with all those things are riddled with shame and guilt. So this was this whole new world that opened up to me, and I couldn't do it out in the open with my family, to say I'm learning about goddesses now. But it was so essential in reclaiming my power and all that was taken away from me, healing my womb, and just my sense of self, emotionally, mentally, and even physiologically. I know this helped me a lot. And the divine feminine is the goddess in so many, many forms. So after Aphrodite, I learned about goddesses from all over the world. Ancient cultures who've had them, and indigenous cultures who still have them, Eastern cultures who have them, where they're still very much revered today. And what I would love for everyone to open up to is whatever their spiritual background. You can be atheist, you can be, a devout Muslim, Catholic, whatever, your spiritual orientation is, the goddess is within everyone. And we can connect with her in any way that we're most comfortable with. So if you're comfortable thinking of the goddess or the sacred feminine as an archetype, right? She is more of this universal psychological idea and, this concept that we can activate within ourselves. So there's the warrior goddess, who women can summon when we are going through a big challenge and we're maybe overcome with fear. We can summon Sekhmet, who is a goddess Egyptian. She has a lioness head. And in ancient Egyptian culture, they didn't have a god of war, they had the goddess of war. So you can summon your inner warrior goddess, or Kali and Durga from the Hindu traditions, Freya from Norse. So just as an example, goddesses come in so many different archetypes. So there's not just one uniform, even archetype of the sacred feminine, because what I love about her is she's, like us women, extremely multifaceted. And when we begin to open to the goddess and the sacred feminine, it becomes such a beautiful journey of seeing that all these goddesses represent the full range of womanhood. There are goddesses of wrath, like Pele. She is the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes. Over here in my book, and she is, I'd love to show everyone her image just because
Sure.
I had her drawn. So she's erupting out of her volcano. And even in this initiation in my book, Goddess Reclaimed, it's about honoring your sacred rage. So whereas I feel, sometimes spiritual traditions focus on forgiveness and kindness and all that, the goddesses give us permission to embrace the full range of our humanity, men and women. So there are goddesses of rage, there are goddesses of grief, there are goddesses of the underworld, which is our conscious shadow, and being okay with those human experiences of envy or self-loathing, and how we can love those parts of us into healing by embracing a goddess of the underworld, or I have earlier in here, Ereshkigal, who is the shadow within us, right? Yes. So for me, the divine feminine is awakening to the full range of our own feminine power and different archetypes. Another way we connect with her, which we can get more into, is the goddess as Shakti. Shakti meaning divine feminine life force energy. And that is really tapping into the energetics of the goddess inside of you. And like Lakshmi behind me is the goddess of abundance. So when we release Lakshmi inside of us, we're releasing the source of abundance from within, which is the feminine way to create. Whereas the masculine might be, hustling and working really hard and accomplishment. The goddesses of abundance remind us that the source of abundance is our connection to the infinite source, the ocean of abundance inside of us. So there are practices that we can, use in our daily lives that unleash this Shakti, the creative Shakti, the fertile Shakti, the abundance Shakti, the love Shakti, the intelligence Shakti, spiritual Shakti. So they're just, wherever you are on your path, your personal journey, your spiritual journey, the goddess is for everyone. And it's just so rich and beautiful when we start to tap into the sacred feminine. So I hope that I could talk about this one question for days.
Right. Well, I love that. Everything that you said. And I help women to understand that you don't just have a physical body, you have an energetic body, and that energetic body energy can neither be created or destroyed. It just transmutes forms. And so it goes on forever. And your energetic body is informed by all of these archetypes from thousands of years. And part of the physical healing is acknowledging all these parts of ourselves and not disowning the parts or making them in the shadow, like greedy, I'm not greedy, angry, I'm not angry, which is a common one for women. So isn't Callie that anger energy?
Yes, she's
right.
She's fearless. She really helps us to overcome our fears.
Mm-hmm.
Pele I love because as a Hawaiian goddess of the volcano, she teaches us that righteous rage can be like fire. And she creates the Hawaiian Islands by first, she destroys, and that's her righteous rage. But when that lava fire, when it cools, it becomes rich, dark soil that then creates paradise on earth, right? Island. So it's like woman, when we tap into our volcanic rage, it's so righteous and sacred. Like when we say no to an abusive situation and we set that boundary or walk away from something that's really dishonoring, disempowering us, we might end something. So that's that destruction. But the fire of, that righteous rage will help us to create a beautiful new paradise in our own life. And so we need to tap into that volcanic anger. It's actually, the goddesses teach us, healthy and essential to honor everything that's going on inside of us.
And so if a woman's listening and maybe she's going through a situation where she really needs to invoke that energy, Pele or Kali, and she needs to step into, maybe she's not used to expressing anger, and she needs to step into her power around that, how would she utilize these goddesses to do that?
I would love to give a couple of rituals. So number one is the feminine is embodied, right? So we can get really in our heads, and a lot of the masculine traditions are more esoteric and spiritual and about, accomplishing or achieving enlightenment and, practicing mindfulness. And that's very helpful, and, we can really benefit from that. The way to embrace the feminine, and particularly these two types of goddess energies, is very physical. So like I showed that dynamic picture of Pele, right? She's very like erupting out of the volcano. And Kali is also this goddess of the dance of destruction, and she loves battle. I'm just trying to find, here we go. So I have a picture of her in my book as well. So you can see her just so loving the battle, and she's the warrior goddess. And a safe way for a woman who's new to, her honoring her anger would be to create a very sacred and safe space in her own home where she'll have complete privacy, and put on some music. So if you even look up on YouTube, Kali mantra, K-A-L-I is how you spell the goddess's name, mantra, you can find usually a beautiful, primal mantra music. And if you don't want to connect with the goddess per se, if that's against your beliefs, just any music that really pumps you up and gets you in touch with that part of you, and begin to feel in your body through movement where you're holding your anger, and especially repressed anger, because as I'm sure you know, repressed rage and anger can implode on us and turn into dis-ease. So it's so essential, right, to release that energetically. So maybe play that music and begin. Kali uses the breath of fire and the lioness, like Sekhmet, who I was talking about as well, the lioness goddess. So begin to pant, sticking your tongue out and making noise and roaring, right? And
the lion breath.
The lion, the lioness. Exactly. Use your hands and sort of, just unleash it. And whether it's 5 minutes, or it doesn't matter, but letting that energy come out through movement, literally shaking it out until you feel that sense of release. And then I would always recommend, after an experience like that, you want to ground yourself, because that energy, what it does, it stirs up all that pent up energy. So you want to then ground. So grounding can be as simple as sitting on the floor, imagining roots going from the base of your spine or the soles of your feet deep into the center of Mother Earth. And that will balance out everything that you released, with then calming it and finding your center again. And then after that, I recommend just continuing self-care. Maybe journaling out, wow, I had no idea. I realized I'm actually really angry at my dad. I thought I was angry at my boss, making me overwork, but it goes back to having to prove myself to my parent when I was a kid. So sometimes, when we're doing this, the deeper layers in the source of our true anger can be revealed. Sometimes it may be revealed as we do these practices over time, but it's just such a beautiful way to begin to tap into that, so we can go on this healing journey and go deeper and deeper in getting to the source of our anger or our grief or our rage, and you know what I mean, just come back into that wholeness and be able to be there for ourselves. So that's just one little ritual, and there's so many more I can share, but like we've talked about, it's also one archetype of the feminine. So does that feel like that would be practical for your audience to hopefully try?
Yes, and so the one you shared, I was just going to share that if you're listening and you're going through a challenging time, maybe this is something that you want to do, the ritual that Syma just shared, do it every morning. First thing when you get up, to call in that energy and strengthen that part of your energy body so that you are empowering yourself for the whole day. Yes. Or if you're in a situation where you find that you're triggered and maybe anger is not something a terrain that you're used to navigating, excuse yourself and go in the bathroom.
Right. And you have to pet sort of, not as loud, but just releasing that energy. And Kieran, I love that you mentioned in the morning, and a follow-up to that would be if they're doing the morning and they're in a situation, because when I was in the corporate world, I had really, bullying higher ups that I worked with. So you can actually imagine yourself as a warrioress, as Kali, holding a sword, and imagine that between you and that situation that's really causing that stress to you, or taking away your energy and your power, because energetically that's what happens. If we're in a toxic relationship or job, that is draining us of our power, usually around the belly or the solar plexus, but it can happen anywhere depending on where you're more sensitive. And so you take this sword and you imagine this toxic cord between you and that situation, and you use your goddess Kali's might and you sever that cord. And that way it actually detaches you, and that situation or person, they can't keep siphoning your power, right? So, and then you might just want to breathe into the pit of your belly and light up that palais fire so that you are in your power and no one can take that from you. So keep that light burning bright.
Yeah, I love that, the cord cutting. I've used that personally. And I just want to help everyone understand that if you're waiting for us medical doctors to really heal you and deliver you to the brilliant health and life that you're meant to live, it's not going to happen. And so really you need to take your healing into your own hands. And there's a reason that these traditions have been passed down for thousands of years. There is, because there's validity to them. Anything that has validity is going to stand the test of time. So you can wait till science tries to do double-blind, placebo-controlled trials on this, which I don't even know how you would do that.
Right.
Or you can see what resonates for you and maybe start trying it. And it's amazing when you have an open mind. I've used a lot of these things that we're talking about, and even being a skeptic sometimes,
Right.
and it really does help.
Yeah.
So just open,
right?
yeah, open your mind to it. So I love that. So what's another, say you are having illness, and I'm not sure, but I think there are goddesses who are about promoting health. So what would be some goddesses you might share in that
If
genre?
we're actually going through illness, there are a few that can help. So if there's specifically around our hormones, there are goddesses like Yamanya, a Yoruba African goddess, and she is the goddess of the ocean. And so as the ocean, as women, we have this connection to cycles, womb, right? If our periods are cyclical, or, you know, maiden motherhood, and, you know, menopause. All these are very sacred cycles we go through. So if our health challenge has to do with our hormones, Yamanya and goddesses like her are there to help us to resync ourselves with the cycles of nature, which are our own cycles. And this is the case even if you've had your uterus removed, or you no longer have your period, or anything like that. If it's out of balance, whatever the situation, we can begin, for example, to connect with the cycles of the moon and have rituals around this. So if the new moon, you might want to have that at a time where you're more energetic, maybe more social, more clear, setting your intentions and goals. Around the full moon, social, love, intimacy, dates, community, family. And then as the moon begins to wane, that is the crone, or the warrioress energy. And that's where we want to reflect, review, revise, retreat, replenish. So we're going, the new moon is the maiden energy, the full is the mother's energy, and the waning, the dark moon is the crone's energy, the wise woman, the healer, the seer, the warrioress, the witch. Mm-hmm. And so as we just tap into these cycles, if we're out of balance hormonally, that can really empower energetically regaining that balance. Or instead of going with the moon, if you do menstruate regularly, you can sync with that. So for example, your period is a shedding, and so what are you releasing, what are you letting go of? Afterwards, really coming into the maiden, setting your intentions and goals. At ovulation, it's lovemaking, communication, presentation, fruition, launching things, you know, deadlines, like that's just where we're so potent and creative. Mm-hmm. And then again, as we're into that, PMS for me is powerful magical sorceress.
I love that.
That acronym.
I'm going to use that.
Really tapping into your magical power. Powerful. We're more intuitive. We're more witchy. We're more, so that's why we have that no filter. So people might think we're bitchy, but we're actually witchy. Witchy as in we're tapping into our spiritual power. So we don't have time for bullshit. So we're not going to be as patient, and we can really sense people's energies and get overwhelmed and be like, yuck, like that person really drained me, or, you know, and so that's why it's actually better to have more retreat time during that. So Yamanya is extremely helpful for, and goddesses like her, for the womb wisdom and hormonal balance. Then there are two goddesses. Bridget, she is a beautiful Celtic goddess of healing. And this is a lot of healing to do with, you know, herbal magic, alchemy. So alchemy is a really deep level of healing, where in order to truly, it's transformation. And this requires a few phases. The first, which is blackening, and this is sort of like the destruction of everything that is the source of why we maybe have this disease or challenge in the first place. And that's usually the hardest part. Like in my case, that's when I experienced the depth of my depression. And in that, I realized that I had shame, self-loathing, extremely low self-worth, fear of intimacy and not being good enough. And it's the most uncomfortable part. And this is where we're really, really facing our wounds at the deepest level. But then it's only through that process that we can begin the transformation of healing and transmuting that until we extract the gold, the wisdom, the power, the lessons, even like in a high spiritual level our lessons. So I know that in my path, not only were the lessons about learning how to parent myself, how to heal myself, how to honor and respect myself, but eventually that karmic journey became my dharma, my purpose, and my mission to empower other women with this knowledge, right? Bridget also helps a lot with natural medicine. So if it's herbs, supplements, you know, if you're more called to complement whatever you're doing medically with a holistic practitioner of some sort, she is sort of a patron goddess of that. And then my favorite is Isis, who's behind me as well. So Isis is extremely multifaceted, but she's the goddess of 10,000 names. So she really embodies all of her feminine power. But one of her, you know, major superpowers is goddess of healing, magic, and she was the goddess of the words of power and ritual and chant. So Isis invites women to begin our healing through maybe a mantra practice or affirmation, knowing that your voice is really powerful. She would remind us to be really careful of how we use the term I am instead of saying I am sick. You can know that you acknowledge you have an illness, but you can say, you know, I have this issue or I'm dealing with this issue, right? But not I am that, because that's not who you are. Isis reminds us to be so empowered by the words that we use. And I am healthy, I am healing, I am strong, I am powerful, I am supported. Or again, if you want to be more spiritual, you can look into sacred mantra practices, sacred chants. Words of power are really special, and she is the most very esoteric and spiritual. So Isis's healing comes through maybe a daily meditation practice where you're sitting and you're visualizing yourself, those parts of your bodies as healthy and healing. Maybe having rituals. She loves rituals with you know, whether you're smudging yourself with incense or sage or anointing yourself with oils, and practicing that self-love no matter what you're going through, to still honor your body as your sacred temple. So Isis is a goddess to look into if you really want to embrace the spiritual aspect of healing, and especially the sacred rituals.
So you mentioned your journey, which kind of led you to this path and has become your dharma. What role did the sacred feminine and the goddesses play in your healing on a day-to-day practical basis? Because I know there are people who are listening who are going through stuff. They're going through shit, you know, and they kind of wonder, well, how do we do this on a day-to-day basis? So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I completely understand. So in my healing journey, when I needed to go a little more in depth, first I learned about different goddesses, but for example, one goddess, Kuan Yin, she is a beautiful Buddhist goddess. I would say, well, I mean, it's said that she helps with everything. She opens us to miracles, but what Kuan Yin really does is she helps us to tap into the lotus inside of our heart, which is our spiritual wisdom and grace. And she's the goddess of compassion. And for me, on my journey, and what I invite others to consider is, I began to work with goddesses on 40-day sadhana levels. So when I was in my depression, I realized a lot of my issues came from childhood. And I needed to heal the inner child, that part of me that felt alone and unworthy and completely unlovable. So Kuan Yin's mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, and there are beautiful renditions of it on YouTube that we can find. I started doing a practice of that, saying it on a mala bead of 108 beads, so 108 times. 108 is a very sacred number because we have 108 nadis, which are many of us know maybe about chakras, which are 7 major energy channels, but nadis are a little more subtle. So nadis, when you say a holy word or a mantra or even an affirmation 108 times, it's penetrating that Shakti, right, the energy through all 108 of those inner subtle energy channels. So for me, taking on, for example, a 40-day spiritual practice, mantras I find to be both spiritual and practical, because it's something you can do in 10 minutes every day or less. You can get a mala, you know, so you have this really tangible tool, and you can chant
like
it.
This.
Like exactly.
Like this.
Woohoo! Yes, right?
Yeah.
It's
And then and it helps you keep count. Everybody listening, I've got one. Yeah.
Yes, right? So
Yeah.
what I would recommend is then maybe dedicating yourself to a deeper spiritual practice. 40 days is also very powerful because it's a sort of a spiritual incubation time to create the shift. And it has to be every single day for 40 days if you're going to take on a mantra practice, because that's just how the energetics of it work. If you forget, like I've had mantra practices where I forgot on day 38 or 9 to say something happened, maybe I was staying over my mom's or something, and you have to start then from day 1 because it's cumulative. So that I found like a daily mantra practice with a specific goddess, and so inner child healing. Kuan Yin then helped me to heal. She helped me to forgive. She helped me to find grace and wisdom in those experiences and be able to have a healed, healthy, happy heart and move forward. And I'm not saying it may only take 40 days, right? Sometimes it may take more. But I also then took on a Durga mantra. Durga is another warrior goddess of India. And she was there also to help me take back my power and to really rebuild my self-esteem. So it also depends on our, on our sisters, what phase of their healing journey they're in. If you feel like you need something more gentle, Kuan Yin is your girl, your goddess, right? If you really just need a badass, powerful archetype, then maybe Kali or Durga. And I'm talking about the Eastern ones specifically just because they usually have a mantra practice that you can find and you can chant for 40 days.
Yeah,
So that would be usually, and if a goddess doesn't have a mantra practice, I'll find some kind of little mini meditation that I might do with her for 40 days. And that's fun because every day it might be something beautiful. I can set an intention, like if I'm doing Aphrodite for self-love and healing my sexuality, I might just ask Aphrodite to, take me into a sacred ocean and bathe me and wash away my trauma. And I sort of sit back. If you're visual, you can visualize things. I find the visualization becomes quite spontaneous because these practices really hone your intuition and your gifts as well. If you're struggling with, maybe abundance, asking Lakshmi does have a mantra, but, to come in to use your visualization. So I think depending on the woman, what practices resonate with you more, maybe customizing a ritual, but connecting with a goddess on a deeper level for a 40-day period, I find brings about great transformation.
Yes. And just in modern day culture, many people may not realize that goddesses often are a part of our everyday lives. For instance, one of my favorites, maybe my all-time favorite, Statue of Liberty, is a goddess to me whom I've always loved and had a special connection with.
Yeah.
And then even my alma mater, Bryn Mawr College, we had the goddess Athena of knowledge.
Amazing.
And so that college was...
cup. I always think the Starbucks,
right, the mermaid.
Goddess to me.
She is a goddess, the mermaid, and she plumbs the depths of the unconscious.
Nike, like the brand Nike was also the goddess of victory.
Nike,
so,
right?
I feel like the goddess has always found a way.
Right. So it's really a part of our culture. And so maybe just looking around at what resonates with you. And when I see the Statue of Liberty or I think about her, I feel strong inside. So that's something I can call on. And then Athena from my alma mater, I feel just like I have invincible mind. So just picking some that you have a connection with, and maybe you have practices around it, or maybe it's just something that you come back to. I used to have a little teddy bear that was this dressed up like the Statue of Liberty. Remember those little, I forget the brand name, the little animals, they're all the rage for a while, and people were collecting them.
The Shopkins?
No, gosh, I can't think of it.
My niece used to have them.
Anyway, and all dressed in green, a green teddy bear with a green drape and a little green torch. So yes, and what are some dramatic ways that you've seen people use the goddess and divine feminine, and what have you seen it help women move through? If you could share examples, I think that would be wonderful.
I have helped it change women with any situation. So with my coaching clients, if a woman is afraid to leave, an abusive marriage, or just maybe not even abusive, but just a situation where she feels really trapped, or she's not being respected or valued in her power, being honored, going from feeling like she has no choice, whether it's because of financial reasons or children, to getting, summoning her inner Durga, her Kali, her warrioress, and becoming resourceful, becoming strong, and leaving that marriage, starting a business, or going back to the workforce, upgrading her skills, and, becoming a role model for her daughters or children. I've seen women who struggled with manifesting love and just keep attracting really, just the wrong types of partners for them, who don't love, appreciate, or honor them, to tapping into Aphrodite, right? Learning how to fall in love with yourself, respect yourself, value yourself, and magically call in amazing men. And ultimately, many of my clients ended up have gotten married to men who treat them like a goddess. But it's because the woman first healed, any lack of self-love within themselves. And it doesn't ever mean we become perfect, right? So it's not like tapping into the goddess means we're like superhuman, but it just means that we tap into our true power. And again, that means our full range of humanness. But I've seen women who always struggled with getting underpaid at work, to then either getting, tapping into Athena or Lakshmi, and really knowing the value that they bring to their workplace and their colleagues, learning how to speak up, learning how to value themselves, and then either magically manifesting promotions and bonuses, or just being like, enough of this shit at their current job, and getting like a 50% raise at their next job. So, practical situations, relationships, health, I've really seen women, depending on which goddess that they needed to tap into, I feel like the goddess always delivers. And what's happening is, I believe it's divine grace. It's not only that the on a heavenly level that these goddesses exist, as divine beings, they're like angels, to help us. But I feel like we're activating that Shakti and power inside of us. And so everything around us shifts to match and meet us where we are. And that process can sometimes be uncomfortable, because there can be people in a life who might be threatened by our rising power and us finally becoming healthy, especially when maybe we're in codependent friendships where we get together with our girlfriends and we just complain about everything all the time. And like I found on my journey, I lost some friends along the way where I was maybe like them, more in victim mode and feeling powerless. But then when you start making these bold, beautiful changes in your life, then you see your old self with your friends and with compassion, and you're trying to bring them like, oh, we can do this and we can change, and you don't have to be with that guy or that crappy job, or you can heal this, health situation. And sometimes people, will want to join you and get inspired and rise up with you, and sometimes they want to bring you down. So, the changes can sometimes, even though they're very empowering, mean that, we have to be true to our path. But I feel like the goddesses will bless us no matter what, because what you're really tapping into is your own feminine power.
Wow. I love that. And I think you should make bumper stickers that say, the goddess always delivers. I love it.
I love that, because there's so many things that God gets, right? Like with God, all things are possible, which is love, but I think we need some goddess ones as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your journey, and just the knowledge that you have. And just really helping us to understand another aspect of ourselves that we may not have known about, and more tools that we may not have known about and had access to, that now everybody listening can start to see what resonates for me. What do I want to incorporate into my life? Maybe get your book and look into the goddesses and see which ones resonate for her. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and it's my passion, and it's my purpose.
Yes, that's the best thing to do. And I'd love it if you could just give 3 top take action steps for everyone, because you've covered a lot of ground. What would be, if they're interested, what would be the first 3 things you would recommend that they would do?
Sure. I would invite, number one, maybe say, what is my priority, like of my life? Am I focused on my health or my relationship or money or whatever it is? Figure that out and prioritize it. Number 2, maybe look into a goddess of abundance or goddess of love or goddess of healing, right? Mm-hmm. And look into a goddess that can serve as your sacred feminine ally in helping you to heal what you need to heal in that area and get empowered in that area. And then number 3 would be either look up a ritual that you can do with that to activate that part of yourself, that goddess's power inside of you, and start maybe doing it on a 40-day basis, on a 40-day sadhana or spiritual practice. And so that way, it's just like a nice, simple way to focus on one part of your life and begin to explore working with at least one goddess in a life.
I love that. So I challenge you, if you're listening, to take those steps and just start exploring and then see what changes happen for you. If it resonates with you, by all means, look into it. And Syma, the name of the podcast is Her Brilliant Health. What does that mean to you?
That means to me a woman who's embraced her full goddess glory and has come fully into her sacred feminine power.
Oh, I love that. That's another bumper sticker. So yes, that's awesome. And you certainly exemplify that. You've taken your pain and made it your purpose and your passion, and you're helping other people. And that's what it's all about. And thank you so much for doing that for the world. The world needs it. Thank you so much.
It's my honor. I'm so grateful every day. Thank you so much, Karen, for having me. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Her Brilliant Health Radio. Hopefully you're inspired to take action on some new information you received today. A step towards the bountiful, blissful, beautiful vitality that you deserve. If you have health topics and questions you'd like addressed, please message me on my Facebook page or visit KieranDunstonMD.com and let me know. I'd love to help. Remember to share this podcast on social media and send it to your friends and family who could benefit from it too. If you love the show, please go right now to iTunes, write a review, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you'll be the first to know when future episodes are available. Thank you again for joining me, and remember, achieving optimal health isn't magic, it's science.